Rising prospect Henry Cejudo got fraud checked by the champ Song Yadong last night. Javid Basharat, the triple champ, the most hyped up UFC fighter ever. Somehow, some way, only I picked against him, and I'm actually not even joking. These were the predictions for Javid Basharat versus Ricky Simón. I knew there was still some hype. But the fact that people still haven't woken up, the fact that people still are living under rocks. But UFC Seattle just concluded. Henry Cejudo, the rising prospect, he finally got fraud checked. I've been saying this guy can't wrestle. Everybody's talking him. No, I'm joking. Let's actually get serious for a second. Massive controversy in the main event. The card as a whole was incredible. Tons of finishes. Things started to get a little bit worse as soon as the main card hit. I guess that's like the main card curse. Dana White talked about it whenever there's a sick early prelims and prelims. The main card usually sucks. The main card didn't suck. It was just a step down from the prelims. But we had a bunch of good fights. And I will say this because we're going to get into the main event right away. Before we talk about the stoppage, and I'm just going to say this. I was pissed as soon as the fight stopped. I was really upset. However, when Cejudo gave his speech, I was like, all right, I think that I don't think we should be too hard on him because I think he's kind of right with the not wanting to go out there and just get flatlined just to appease everybody when he really can't see. Again, I originally thought, oh, this guy's just coping. He's just coping because his vision got 10% worse, and now he wants the whole world to think, I'm blind as bat, pale as a ghost. I can't go out there. But you know what? He said straight up on the mic, dude, Song is going to hurt me if I can't see. Like, this is a guy that's going to KO me. He's basically saying, like, I'll get fucked up if this fight continues, and I don't think it's worth it. And I agree. I fucking agree. All right? So I'm not going to hold it against him, but he did forfeit, and he did quit. So we'll talk about that. I mean, listen, quitting is not the question. The question is, was it a good reason to? And we'll get to that. But, like, let's actually talk about the fight. Henry Cejudo impressed me. He looked way better than I expected, all right? I picked Song Yadong to win by a third or fourth round old man KO. Old man KO is, one of those KOs where you don't just flatline somebody, but they sort of look like an old man. And I thought he was going to KO Henry Cejudo with a big gnarly right in a war of attrition. And to be fair, we didn't get there. And I will say this. Despite a relatively slow start for Cejudo, in the second round, he looked insanely impressive. Like, his speed was there. He wasn't just throwing the right hand after right hand. I was joking around about that in my prediction video, and I really wanted to come on here and joke around about that, basically saying, everyone says Cejudo's so surgical and crispy on the feet, man, and he really just goes out there and throws big gnarly right, and it's just repeated right hand after right hand. He was throwing the straight left from southpaw. He was actually getting the jab going as well. And there was a moment at the end of the second round where it really looked like Cejudo was starting to turn the tide. And I saw shades of how he looked against Marlon Moraes when he started to break Marlon Moraes. Song was still landing in that second round, but Cejudo started to really spin Song Yadong's head back. He was busting his nose up with the jab. His speed was on point, man. His speed was on point. He looked like he had some pop in his shots. The jab was good. The leg kicks were good. For a 38-year-old, he looked way better than I expected. I actually think that I thought that he looked better than he did against Aljo. Definitely better than he did against Merab, but then again, it's easy to look better than you do against Merab because after the first round with Merab, everyone sort of falls off a cliff, right? But still, I guess Cejudo impressed me more than Song. Even though Song was winning this fight, and I think he would have won. I think he would have won the fourth. I think he would have won the fifth, maybe even gotten himself a finish. But then again, man, Cejudo's durability still seems to be there, but his leg was definitely affected by all the kicks. I think that Cejudo should stick around, honestly. And I don't think he should fight more Song Yadong's nightmare matchups or mirror matchups, these, short, stocky guys that can also throw right hands, that have fire hydrants for heads, that have good takedown defense because, let's just talk about this. Didn't get a single takedown, right? People have been telling me I've been overrating Jan's wrestling, and I made my prediction all about Jan and whatnot, but it's just true. Petr Yan is a better wrestler in MMA than Henry Cejudo. And the accolades, all right, all the championships you can have in freestyle wrestling, it doesn't always translate to the cage, and it certainly didn't last night. Cejudo attempted a bunch of takedowns, couldn't get one. But his striking looked great. Do I want to see a rematch? No, because this one was close and he was coming up short. The next one would be even worse, if not the same. I want to see Cejudo fight an old head like Rob Font, because I don't want Cejudo to stick around and keep fighting these guys that are really good, that are just going to get, the better of him because they're in their prime, right? And Cejudo is no longer in his. Because then he's just going to have like 6-7 losses at the end of his career, and his legacy is going to be a little bit stained. Let's see Cejudo get a win, all right? Like, let's just see him go out there, have a fun fight that's a winnable fight, and let's see him get the dub, because he still looks amazing. Again, like, this guy was lightning fast last night. He was faster than Song. I usually say, well, you lose your lighter man skill after a few years of moving up. And Cejudo didn't just move up. He moved up and then left the sport for a few years, was probably heavy outside of the cage during that time off, and then came back, and he's still had a couple more bantamweight fights since. But he still has that lighter man speed. Like, to be moving like that at 38, I was really impressed. Like, to be, piecing up Song Yadong in the second round with the boxing, I was very impressed. But I think the reason why I was so impressed is because, in contrast to Song Yadong, he just did better than I thought. But he was losing the fight. Song outlanded him in the first round. I thought maybe Cejudo had an argument to win the second, and then the third round, after the eye poke, before the eye poke, Song was winning the third. It seemed like the leg kicks were starting to get to Cejudo, but let's talk about the stoppage. So Song pokes Cejudo in the eye, and people right off the bat are saying, take a point. No. All right? Listen, I understand that if you just make that a rule and all the fighters know that a point will not be deducted after one eye poke, everyone's going to eye poke. But I think it was accidental, all right? Song Yadong doesn't strike me as the type of fighter to, like, intentionally eye poke someone, especially when he's already winning the fight and doing well, all right? Even though the fight was close, he was winning the fight. He probably knew that. His corner probably knew that. Why would he intentionally poke Henry Cejudo in the eye? And for Henry Cejudo, originally I was like, he's coping because his vision is slightly worse and it's a tough fight. If he knows his vision is slightly worse and it's already a tough fight, it's going to get a little bit tougher. He's going to want the whole world to know that he can't see it all because he doesn't want to, like, lose this fight. So he'd rather just bail out so that nobody knows what could happen and everyone could just say, well, you never know. But Cejudo was also doing pretty well. I don't think Cejudo would have just quit. It's like, yeah, his leg was compromised a little bit, but he was still in there doing pretty well. You know what I mean? So I don't think Cejudo just thought to himself during that 5-minute period off. Very crafty, by the way. Cejudo taking his sweet time in the corner. We rarely see people take the entire 5 minutes, and Cejudo took all of those 5 minutes. But again, he after those 5 minutes, he started getting pieced up. I don't think Cejudo was just like, let me let Song beat me up for the next minute, so that everyone thinks I can't see. Like, he probably legitimately couldn't see. And then at the end of the round, he was basically screaming to his corner, saying, get the doctor, I can't see. And watching as a fan, when we're watching a really good fight, you don't want to see the fight end. You're going to be a little bit upset if Cejudo's the one calling it off. And you expect gold medalist, known for being gritty. This is the last guy that's going to forfeit a match in the middle of it. But then again, Cejudo, he's 38 years old. If I go out there and I literally can't see, I'm going to get knocked out cold against Song. And he said that in the post-fight interview. He said, listen, this is a guy that's way too dangerous for me to fight when I can't see. If people are going to call me a quitter or whatever, so be it. I'm not just going to go out there to appease the fans when I know that I'm screwed and I'm just a sitting duck waiting to be KO'd and waiting to take a bunch of brain damage. And I honestly don't blame him. So I'm not going to hold it against Cejudo. He did forfeit. I think some fighters would have went out there and fought. But either way, like, 38 years old, had a good performance, looked pretty good. If he knew that he was screwed after that, why continue? You know what I mean? Like, if you just know, I can't see for shit. Because we don't really know how bad it was. I'll take him at his word. I hope to see Henry Cejudo back in the cage. Just go in there for a fun fight. And I know some people are going to say, there are no fun fights. Every fight's life and death. But there are fights that are much easier than Song Yadong. And if the Cejudo that we saw last night shows up, he's probably winning them. Again, Rob Font, he could probably beat Rob Font. And for Song, I think what's next for Song is probably a Umar Nurmagomedov matchup. Because I think that they're going to give O'Malley a Yan rematch or a title fight. And I think that leaves Umar and Song without a fight. And I think that's going to be the fight that they make. So, yeah, really good main event. Song was winning, but Henry Cejudo really impressed me with his speed. And we had an anticlimactic finish. So it is what it is. Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez. This was an interesting fight, but Anthony Hernandez gets it done. He is now 2-0 against Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen, early on, I was thinking, man, he's talking shit to Anthony Hernandez. He's going to have y'all must have forgot type of performance. He head kicks Hernandez. He's freaking pointing at him like Dustin Poirier. And then Hernandez gets the jump on him when Brendan Allen jumps his back. And he starts controlling him a little bit. But then at the end of the round, Brendan Allen turns the table and starts beating up Anthony Hernandez. Now Brendan Allen has not only the control time, but the damage. He's beat up Anthony Hernandez on the ground. And now, he's the captain now, right? Basically, he's, the guy where now he's big brothering the guy that big brothered him back in the day. Second, third round, war of attrition. Anthony Hernandez does what he does. He breaks the record that Chris Weidman held for the most takedowns in middleweight history. I believe it's 44 is the new record. Anthony Hernandez, just by having a better gas tank, scrambling a little bit better. Brendan Allen constantly taking risks, fucking going for guillotines and stupid arm bars. Brendan Allen just always takes too much risk on the ground, and it ends up costing him against these other good grapplers. We saw something similar when he fought Imavov, and you can't do that with Anthony Hernandez. And then at the end of the fight, it looked like Hernandez was just had way more steam, way more gas in the tank, and he won the second, he won the third. Anthony Hernandez, I've been saying it for a while. This guy's legit, and he's going to be a top 5 fighter in this division. And I actually think Brendan Allen is very underrated. I think if you put Brendan Allen back in the day, you put Brendan Allen in the Anderson Silva era, we may not even know who Anderson Silva is. All right? Like, I'm being serious. Some people are going to say, whoa. Think about it. Chael Sonnen damn near 50-40'd Anderson Silva. Okay? Chris Weidman. Nope, wait, you don't understand, man. Chris Weidman was an absolute monster on the feet. Yeah, sure. Brendan Allen's striking is better than Chris Weidman's. I don't care what anyone says. If you put Brendan Allen back in the 2000s, he is a champion. 100%. Not 100%. Maybe he gets KO'd by Silva with an up kick. But I'm telling you, Brendan Allen is a good fighter. It's just that he's in the modern era and the middleweight division is stacked. Okay? It's stacked. And now you have an Anthony Hernandez who also, if you put Anthony Hernandez back in the day, you wouldn't know who Weidman is. All right? And people are going to say, nope, Weidman would take him down easily. People are literally going to say that. Nope, you don't understand how good Weidman was. Weidman would have taken him down with a big old blast double leg. And he would have knocked him out with a big gnarly right hand. No, he wouldn't have. Weidman would have won the first round and got, 49-46. So Anthony Hernandez is finally closing in on the top 5. I think the right matchup for him is going to be like a Robert Whittaker or who else? Who's like the odd man out? Who's the odd man out? Maybe a Jared Cannonier. Since Cannonier just won. I think they'll probably make that because I don't know if they're going to put Anthony Hernandez in the cage with like a big name like Whittaker or a big name like Adesanya. Hernandez is one of those guys where the hardcore fans know of him, but he doesn't have a big name yet. And I don't think the UFC is going to want to if they're going to do an Adesanya fight, they're going to want to get the most eyes they possibly can on that fight. But I think Anthony Hernandez could be fighting for a belt someday. And Bisping, pretty funny how Bisping was saying, this guy could be, he's not good anywhere. He's not the strongest. He's not the fastest. He's not the biggest. Bisping loves Anthony Hernandez because he reminds him of himself because Bisping wasn't the fastest, the strongest. So I'm wondering if you guys caught that as well. I thought that was pretty funny. Bisping was like, he kept glazing Hernandez for that reason. He's this guy, he looks like your average Joe and he's going to be a champion. So yeah, maybe we'll see another Bisping-esque champion, even though Hernandez is more dominant than Michael Bisping. But let's get on to Rob Font versus Gene Matsumoto. Yeah, I didn't predict this fight because it got put together at the very last second. I was hoping they were going to do Rob Font versus Edson Barboza, but they didn't. They did Gene Matsumoto, and Gene Matsumoto picked up Rob Font, slammed him down a couple times, but Rob Font won this fight based on the damage. Takedown defense got pretty good as the fight went on. He just sort of outlasted Gene Matsumoto, and Gene Matsumoto, he went in there with the surprise element. He's one of these guys, you don't really know who he is, man. This guy, man, he's got like 5 fights in the UFC, but he's one of these created fighters on UFC 4. You never seen this guy. We're starting to get to the end of career mode, and now we're fighting the Matsumotos, and Rob Font, still has it in him. He's still got a little bit more durability left in that career mode, and he was able to win this one. It was a tough one. It was a very tough one. But it was a close fight. Gene Matsumoto, pretty good prospect. To do that well against Rob Font, it actually is pretty impressive. Gene Silva, since Ilia Topuria is no longer at featherweight, Gene Silva is the most entertaining fighter. He's legit. He's getting highlight reel after highlight reel. I mean, you could not get a better highlight than what we saw Gene Silva get. Him and Melsik Bagdasaryan are smiling at each other. Gene Silva's kind of taunting him, and then Melsik slaps Gene Silva. And then Gene Silva slaps Melsik Bagdasaryan. And all of a sudden, we're having a little bit of a Nate Diaz type of situation go on. A couple seconds later, Gene Silva drops Melsik Bagdasaryan with a nasty lead hook and a right hand behind it. Melsik Bagdasaryan doesn't even know what hit him. So they have this, buddy-buddy moment, emoting on each other, and then Gene Silva fucking knocks him down. After that, he points at him, looks at the ref, and then jumps on him and lands 100% of the follow-up elbows that he threw. 3 to the body. The last one perfectly lands on the head. That is going to be like the cleanest highlight that we see whenever we get a Gene Silva main event. Whenever Gene Silva's about to walk out and they're playing his highlights, that right there, dropping Melsik Bagdasaryan and then landing 3 nasty elbows to the body, and the last one perfectly hits the face. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be like one of the best highlights ever. And Gene Silva, again, man, this guy is only 4-0. It seems like he's been in the UFC for years at this point. This guy made his debut last year, and he's already like one of my favorite fighters. You know what I mean? Must-see TV. I've been calling him like the more defensively sound Justin Gaethje. He's like a Gaethje Wild, but he's got better head movement, better defense, better timing. So, yeah, and nasty power, man. I remember there was a point at featherweight where the featherweight division didn't have a whole lot of KOs. There weren't a lot of powerful featherweights. There was like the Volkanovski era and the Holloway era, and the big dangerous punchers were like the Ortegas. Ortega was like one of the dangerous guys. Now we have fucking Topuria. We got Diego Lopez, Gene Silva. So yeah, Gene Silva wins this easily. Until he gets to the top 5, I'm probably going to pick Gene Silva to win every single fight. But let's get on to the next one. Alonzo Menifield versus the light heavyweight Shavkat Rakhmonov. I thought Alonzo Menifield was going to win this by KO, but Julius Walker, as I said, he's like the light heavyweight Shavkat Rakhmonov. Similar build, similar way of throwing punches. He's got this upright, awkward style. He's got a granite chin. I mean, Alonzo Menifield hit this guy with some bombs, like some 4-piece combo bombs, and Julius Walker wasn't even phased at all. Rocked Alonzo Menifield in the first round. He won the first round, but Alonzo won the next 2. Gritty performance from Walker. Good debut. We didn't know who this guy was. Now we know he's going to be an entertaining fighter. We know he's going to be like a bit of a marauder. And Alonzo Menifield gets it done despite getting rocked in the first round. But let's get on to the next one. I'm so happy that Ion won this fight, dude. I'm so happy that he won, because if he didn't, he may have gotten cut from the UFC, and we wouldn't have seen him mispronounce the word fuck worse than anybody else in human history. I don't think I've ever heard anyone mispronounce it that bad. He was saying, I'm a nice guy outside the cage, but here I am fight king crazy. I am fight king nuts. The old marauder on the block is now the kingpin of all the marauders again. And we get Ion Cutelaba with improved grappling, with a chip on his shoulder. He means business. He's no longer, one of these silly marauders, man. He finally has some IQ. That was basically Ion Cutelaba. Y'all must have forgotten, man. I actually got some fight IQ. He's got that craftiness now. This is a crafty Ion Cutelaba, right? He's done with all the bullshit. He's done with all the messing around in the cage. Now he means business. Now he's serious. And for that reason, I want to see Ion Cutelaba maybe fight like a Yuri Prohaska next. And I think if he beats Yuri, I think I'm going to pick him to beat Alex Pereira. Or Magomed. I could see him rematching Magomed and winning the trilogy. I think Ion Cutelaba could actually become a triple champ. So I'm going to be rooting for Ion Cutelaba. But seriously, though, like, Ion Cutelaba, man, this guy needs to be cast in a movie. He needs to be like, like the main character in a war movie, like, a warlord movie. Maybe Dustin Poirier is going to make a, whatever. What's Dustin's hat say? Dustin's hat? The war hat. Dustin Poirier's got a hat that says war something on it. But we need Ion Cutelaba to star as like a warlord in a movie. All right. But either way, shout out to Ion Cutelaba. I'm so happy to see him back in the win column, and I'm so happy to see that he's back to his ways. Andre Fili versus Melquiz El Costa. Melquiz El Costa got Andre Fili got Anthony Smithed. You rarely see guillotines working this well. But yeah, Melquiz El Costa caught Andre Fili. Fili sort of put himself in there, and then all of a sudden he was thinking, it's the end of the round. I'm going to be fine. Everyone gets out of these, and the next thing you know, he's tapping. So Melquiz El Costa gets it done. And in the first round, out of nowhere, Andre Fili looks pissed, beating himself up after that one. And this was an interesting finish as well. This one was actually pretty good. Nick Klein versus Mansour Abdul Malik. People were letting me have it when I was saying Nick Klein wasn't a finisher, because I basically watched some highlights from both guys, and I clicked on a couple of their fights. And Mansour Abdul Malik's fights were like 7 minutes long, and then Nick Klein's YouTube fights were like 16 minutes long. And I was like, well, if they're 16 minutes long, that means he's not getting a lot of finishes. But he actually pretty much only gets finishes, but they're like later rounds finishes. Nick Klein fought really well. He impressed me. He landed the spinning back fist, but he actually caught Mansour with the elbow. Sounded like a baseball bat. Rocked Mansour Abdul Malik. Tried to get him out of there. He couldn't. He was fighting a very crafty fight, grappling when he was supposed to be grappling, and eventually Mansour Abdul Malik. I forget exactly what it was that rocked Nick Klein. I think they were just up against the fence, and maybe Mansour Abdul Malik landed a couple of good uppercuts and had him rocked, and then just started landing like a barrage of strikes. It was like Darren Till when he fought Dricus Du Plessis, and Dricus had him up against the fence. Eventually just couldn't handle it, and the ref stepped in. So good debut for Mansour Abdul Malik. Nick Klein, better than I thought, though. And now let's get on to it. Basharat. The announcers, the first thing I want to say is this. I'm watching this fight. It's like we're a minute into it. I got to say, Javid Basharat landed a couple of crafty knees that had a little bit more pop than I thought. But the announcers, I don't know how they get away with this. They said, quote unquote, when Javid Basharat gets going, he's so dangerous. Yeah. When this guy gets going, he's dangerous. And he's just so dangerous when he gets going, man. When the fuck have we seen this guy be dangerous in the UFC? Okay? And when you're saying that, you're not talking about taking someone down and submitting them or whatever. When they say get going, they mean like on the feet. They mean when this guy gets going on the feet, he's dangerous. Javid Basharat is the reason why Ayman Zahabi is ranked. Ayman Zahabi is like the last guy on earth that should be ranked. And listen, nothing against Ayman Zahabi, but like Ayman Zahabi hasn't really beat anyone until he beat Javid Basharat, and that gets him ranked. Javid Basharat is the most overrated fighter in recent history when it comes to the hardcore fans. He's like the modern day Guram Kutuledzhi, but even worse because Guram's actually really good. I remember this is exactly how I felt when Guram lost to Elvis Brenner. Everyone was like, Guram. Dude, people were saying, and Guram's one of those guys that could, within a couple of fights, he's fighting for a belt, and that's not going to surprise anybody. Yeah, man, Guram's one of those guys where, he could, nobody would be surprised if he beats Makshav Oral, man. And then he gets KO'd by Elvis Brenner. But Javid Basharat, though, yes, he's a good grappler, man. Yeah, man, he's a great guy, man. I understand that. But this dude has absolutely no ability to hurt a fly on the feet. And I knew that maybe some people would be picking him. People were going to say, relax, bro. Ricky Simone, not even that guy, man. Ricky Simone lost to Oliveira recently. That should have told you, wait a second, that's not actually that bad of a loss since Oliveira beat Said Nurmagomedov. Ricky Simone is still a powerful wrestler. So right off the bat, Javid Basharat's bread and butter is the grappling. It's not going to be easy to out-grapple Ricky Simone, who's not only a good wrestler, he's stocky, and he's got good cardio. But then it comes down to the feet. Yes, Javid Basharat's the rangy guy. Yes. He has no ability to impose his will on the feet. If you've watched his career, it's straight up toothpick punches. It's toothpick, teeps. It's fruity pebble punches. And Ayman Zahabi, who's, he's okay, but he's not that great. Ayman Zahabi was able to just say, wait a second, this guy's throwing toothpicks. All I have to do is move forward and throw a couple punches and I'm going to win. And I look at the predictions tracker, this guy that runs the UFC predictions tracker, and I was shocked, man. I was like one of the only 5 people to pick Ricky Simón. What world are we living in? Where I'm one of the only 5 out of like 100 people that are picking Ricky Simón. Like, this was one of those fights where people were like, yeah, man, I don't really know, but obviously you got to go with Javid in this one. Obviously you got to go with Javid, man. This is like, you should have found this out years ago. People should have learned after the Zahabi fight. I thought, man, maybe it's going to be like, 40% of people picking Ricky Simón, but it's literally like 5%. So, and I called Ricky Simón by first round KO. I said, I think Simon's going to KO him. And he knocks him out cold, man. Because, Javid was doing pretty well. He was landing some crafty knees, but Ricky Simón was shooting takedowns, not really getting them, but shooting them and sort of manhandling Javid. And then eventually he just lands a 1-2 because Javid Basharat has nothing dangerous coming back in Ricky Simón's direction to get him any respect. So, yeah, nasty KO. And, I was happy to be right on this, but that was a nasty KO. I hope Javid's okay. I'm not like rooting against the guy or whatever. I want Javid to be a champ, but let's be serious. That was a nasty KO. So, literally one of the nastiest KOs I've seen in a long time. But I'm just kind of shocked how many people were just, it's not even that they were so confident. It's just that Javid seemed to be the obvious pick to most people. And again, there's going to be people saying, dude, it's so easy to say this after the fact. No, it's not. Ricky Simón was obviously the right pick. He has power. Yes, he's a simple fighter. He throws big, gnarly 1-2s, big overhands, and leg kicks, and a blast double leg takedown. I know Ricky Simón is a very basic fighter, but if you're in there with someone that's just not dangerous at all, man, it's like a clear pick. So this was a very satisfying pick to get right. All right, just because of the fans. It's not like I dislike Javid Basharat. I think his style is boring. It's more so the fans that like hype him up so much. Not even so much. It's not even that anymore. It used to be that. It used to be people literally saying this guy could be a champ one day. It used to be that. Nowadays, it's more so like just the flippant, yeah, man, gonna pick Basharat. Obviously, on to the next one. Well, obviously gotta go. It's like the idea that, oh, it's just so obvious that he's gonna win. Like, I just don't understand it. So, yeah. Ricky Simón, big gnarly 1-2. Big gnarly 1-2. All right. Austin Vanderford. Man. Another fight I didn't pick versus Nikolav. I can't even pronounce that. Veretennikov. Austin Vanderford versus Nikolav Veretennikov. I didn't pick this fight because it was put together at the last second, but I actually don't know. I probably would have looked at Nikolav's fights, but we know Austin Vanderford's like a Bellator fighter, Paige Van Zandt's boyfriend. So right off the bat, I probably would have picked against him. Just because old man from Bellator, man. We've known about this guy for fucking 10 years, basically. But he went in there and dominated. Nikolav. I think both of these guys took this fight on short notice. This is one of those fights where I think it was supposed to be something completely different. Like, remember the Anthony Smith fight versus Vitor Petrino? It originally was like Jamal Hill versus, Khalil Roundtree. This was one of those. But Austin Vanderford just ran a wrestling clinic on Nikolav and beat him up, finished him, TKO'd him on the ground, got himself a really good UFC debut, and then afterwards, Nikolav goes over to him and fucking shoves him. And I don't know if that shove is going to be the same as, punching your opponent after the fact. I remember who's the guy that everyone hated back in the day? Man, I'm a real hardcore fan because I know. The guy that Woodley TKO'd when he sat him down and he was literally doing a squat and Woodley 1-2'd him. The guy with the blonde hair, dyed his hair blonde. I know, man. Shit. Fuck, bro. He was public enemy number one, dude. Public enemy number. I know who I'm talking about. I got the face, dude. I got the face. I know. You can't even comment casual, man. You can't because I fucking have the person in my head. And I'm not going to continue the video until I freaking remember his name. And some people are like, Gaddle man. He wasn't even fighting when I started watching the sport. This guy was out of the UFC before then. But I believe, he fought Paul Daly, man. He fought every welterweight. Dude, this might go on for another 40 minutes because this is one of those names where you just know it, but you can't come up with it. Shit, man. Shit. I know public enemy number one back in the day, welterweight. Punched people after the fight ended and then got banned from the UFC for life. My point is, Nikolaev is not going to get banned. I don't think so. But then again, if he's making his debut, he's really got no leg to stand on. When you're making your UFC debut, you got to be perfect. You got to walk on eggshells all fight week. You got to make sure not to piss anyone off, not to ruffle any feathers. And pushing Austin Vanderford because you didn't like the stoppage? This was some fucking, weak shit. This was even worse than when Pavlovich went over to push Volkov after that fight. So that was some weak shit, but I'm still trying to remember the name. God. I got it. It's not Condit. I think his name starts with a J. I think it's Jake. It's not Jake Shields. Who is it? One of those old welterweights from the dinosaur era. One of those welterweights that was in the game when Nick Diaz was doing his thing. Shit, man. Come on! What's his name? Dang it. Koscheck! Yeah! It's Koscheck, man. Josh Koscheck. Yeah, son. What's up, baby? I'm a hardcore fan. Dude, I've been watching the sport since the 90s, son. Yeah, dude, I've been watching the sport since the 90s, son. See, that's the thing. I knew. I knew what I said when Woodley TKO'd him. Woodley had him squatting after he landed the right hand, and this guy was literally, doing a squat, and then Woodley 1-2'd him. I know. Josh Koscheck, man. Josh Koscheck, he's one of the craziest brothers ever, brother. Fucking knew it, man. I knew I was gonna, dude, I'm a hardcore, man. What you want to do? Anyway, Nursulton Ruziboev versus Eric Mcconico. All right, now listen. Eric, he went in there with a little bit of the back against the wall mentality, man. You think this guy with the EV is just gonna beat me? I'm about to show everybody what's what. Everyone expects me to lose, and I'm gonna win. And then he lost, unfortunately. But you know what? He put up a better fight than I thought. Nursulton Ruziboev gets it done, second round. Had the longest post-fight speech in human history, I think. I think it was 30 minutes. Nursulton Ruziboev is on the mic. But, this was a decent fight. Eric actually performed better than I thought. All the debutants had better performances than I thought, except for Nikolaev, Veretennikov. Everyone else. And then, man, Modestas, Bukauskas, nasty KO. Satisfying KO, not because of who Rafael is, but just the way that it looked. Rocked him on the feet, barrage of strikes up against the fence, and then Rafael Cerquera goes out, but he's 99% out, so he's still not out enough to be falling on the deck like a sack of potatoes, but he's wobbled enough to where his hands drop, and he's still standing. So Modestas Bukauskas is throwing this barrage of punches. Rafael Cerquera is standing but 99% out, and he's still there. And Modestas Bukauskas gets him with the nastiest 1-2 that land perfectly on his chin. No defense whatsoever. One of the cleanest looking KOs in a long time, dude. Nasty KO, so clean. Modestas Bukauskas, he's back. Had a really tough early going in his UFC career after that horrible knee injury against Khalil Roundtree. But since then, he's looked better and better every single fight. Again, that's that energy that he's getting training with Aspinall and the boys, the big boys in the heavyweight room. Everyone's like, man, Modestas is a new guy. He's training with Mick Parkin, man. Well, that's going to be fine when he's fighting Rafael Cerqueira, but let's see how he does against the fast guys at light heavyweight. But either way, I like Modestas Bukauskas. I'm happy to see him back in the win column. Hopefully he gets a name next. Hopefully he gets somebody that's got somewhat of a name, and we could see him, continue to rise up the ranks. So yeah, that is it for UFC Seattle. What a card. Amazing card. So much to talk about. And I hope the UFC goes back to Seattle. The fans were great. This was actually one of the best crowds in the United States. I'm trying to think of like the best crowds in the U.S. The worst ones are usually Vegas. It's usually the crowds that they go to the most, the fans that are somewhat spoiled by it. But the best crowds are always like the new cities that you wouldn't expect. Iowa's probably going to be an amazing crowd. So, yeah, this was a good fight card. All the fights were amazing. Tons of stoppages. How did I do on picks? I got this one right. I picked Modestas. I picked Ruziboev to win. I picked Simone. That's 3-0, 4-0. I got that one wrong, 4-1. I got that one wrong, 4-2. I got this one right, so 5-2. I got this one right, 6-2. Didn't pick that, 7-2, 8-2. So I went 8-2. Pretty good. Not too shabby. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next.